Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Hope you're having a great day. Last week, I encouraged the men to stretch their understanding. And this week, I'm going to encourage the women to do the same thing. Like Bride last week wasn't just intended for women, Sonship this week isn't only for men. In history, it's the son who inherits the legacy from the father. And so in the kingdom, we all hold the position of sonship. The competing force for the spirit of sonship is the orphan spirit. An orphan is somebody who doesn't have a father. They don't have a father to call, they don't have a father to give them an inheritance. And so it would make sense that the orphan spirit is the main cause of the father's children not receiving what is theirs. That it's the main cause of the father's kids not understanding what their inheritance is, what's already been given to them. The orphan spirit, or the spirit of rejection, takes hold in many forms, and it comes from many different places. It could come that if you grew up and you didn't have a father, or if you grew up and you had a dad, he just wasn't kind. That if you've been rejected in your life, but it didn't come from your parents, that you were rejected from other people. It can come in many forms, and it can plant a seed in many different areas. Rejection sucks and it hurts. I'm not going to sugarcoat that part. Something I heard a while ago, though, that I received that I thought was just really beautiful was that you weren't rejected. God hid your value from them because they weren't assigned to your destiny. When I heard that, I received that. So that now when I am rejected, that I choose to believe that my Father's just orchestrating a really beautiful life for myself, and that not everybody I meet is assigned to my destiny. And so it helps me put up some protection with that orphan spirit, with that spirit of rejection, that I know my dad wants better for me than that. Because just because something is hidden doesn't mean it doesn't have value. If you have expensive jewelry, I would assume that you probably have that hidden away in a safe place. And likewise, just because someone can't see it doesn't mean you don't have value. Jesus was sure of his identity as a son before it was made public. He was sure of his value and his identity before it was made public. He didn't require public acknowledgement in order to receive it. Before the baptism in the Jordan, he was just a carpenter. He was Joseph and Mary's son. After the baptism, he was known as the Son of God. The action of baptism changed how people saw him, how people identified him, not how he saw himself. He was rooted in his identity as a son before and after people understood it, people saw it, or acknowledged it. Abdication is the act of renouncing the throne. And we abdicate our inherited throne when we believe the lie. The lie that says we're not good enough. The lie that says our actions define us. That our mistakes were too big. The lie that says we're not loved. That we're not worthy of it. That everyone would be better off if we weren't around. None of those things are true about you. None of those things are true about me. They're just lies. And the problem with Adam and Eve in the garden wasn't a piece of fruit. It was a lie. It was that they first believed the lie that the Father was holding out on them. That they were lacking something. The issue with us is not our issues. It's that we believe the lie that our Father is holding out on us. that we don't have everything we need, that we don't have what we deserve, and so we go and find it ourselves. The problem is, we find imposters dressed as joy, love, peace, success, when in reality, it's isolation, depression, anxiety, performance orientation, addiction. Adam abdicated the throne in the garden and gave authority to the enemy. If something has authority over us and our life, it's because somewhere along the way we abdicated. Somewhere along the way we gave up our legacy and inheritance of authority because of who our dad is. Jesus came to reclaim that seat that Adam abdicated because of misidentification and believing the lie. We can't be so conceited in our failures to think that God can't use us. I've tried that for a really long time and it didn't get me anywhere. I'm no longer interested in insulting the Father by calling his creation and his child a piece of garbage. We're his chosen kids. Ephesians 1:5 says God decided in advance to adopt us into his own family by bringing us to himself through Jesus Christ. This is what he wanted to do, and it gave him great pleasure. You're not a forced obligation to the Father. He was completely happy to bring you into his family. You're not an afterthought. You're intentional, and you were on purpose. I'm going to read the next few verses out of some different translations. The first one's going to be Romans 8:15. In the Passion, it reads, "And you did not receive the spirit of religious duty, leading you back into the fear of never being good enough. But you have received the spirit of full acceptance, enfolding you into the family of God, and you will never feel orphaned. For as he rises up within us, our spirits join him in saying the words of tender affection, 'Beloved Father.'" In the Mirror, it says, "Slavery is such a poor substitute for sonship. They're opposites. The one leads forcefully through fear, while sonship responds fondly to Abba Father. We are not slaves to a cruel taskmaster, but gifted with the spirit of sonship, engaging the tender affection of Papa without any reserve." The NIV reads, "The spirit you received does not make you slaves so that you live with fear again. Rather, the spirit you received brought about your adoption to sonship. And by him we cry, Abba, Father." Galatians 4:1-7 says, "What I am saying is that as long as an heir is underage, he's no different from a slave, although he owns the whole estate. The heir is subject to guardians and trustees until the time set by his father. So also, when we were underage, we were in slavery under the elemental spiritual forces of the world. But when the set time had fully come, God sent his Son, born of a woman, born under the law, to redeem those under the law, that we might receive adoption to sonship. Because you are his sons, God sent the Spirit of his Son into our hearts, the Spirit who cries out, 'Abba, Father.' You're no longer a slave, but God's child. And since you are his child, God has also made you an heir." 1 John 3:9 in the Mirror reads, "To discover one's authentic sonship in God is to discover true freedom from sin. We are born of him, and his seed remains in us. This is the only possible reference to sober up the mind from the intoxicating influence of deception." Passion says, "Everyone who is truly God's child will refuse to keep sinning because God's seed remains within him, and he is unable to continue sinning because he has been fathered by God himself." You can't be kicked out of his family because when he chose you, you have his DNA. Actions and words can't change DNA. We're going to get into sin another week, but I'm going to give you a spoiler and tell you the definition of sin is to forget how you were formed. Using that lens, I want to reread those two versions of 1 John again. Everyone who is truly God's child will refuse to keep forgetting how he was formed, because God's seed remains within him. And he's unable to continue to forget how he was formed, because he's been fathered by God himself. To discover one's authentic sonship in God is to discover true freedom from forgetting how you were formed. Your issues aren't your issues. Your identity and not knowing whose kid you are is the issue. The issue is not understanding the throne you have access to, and not only have access to, that it's your actual birthright. Have you empowered something in your life that is not true about you because you've believed incorrectly about yourself? Put it down. Let it go. It's okay. You cannot earn something that's already been given to you. The orphan spirit can only be displaced by love and family assignment. Orphans live for love. Sons live from love. And this deserving mindset isn't big enough. To deserve is to do something or have or show qualities of a reward or punishment. If we feel like we deserve something, but we don't get it, where do we land? Probably back in the orphan mindset, saying, we're not good enough, I wasn't valued enough to receive, to get whatever it was. I want to call us higher, and I want to give us an upgrade of thinking into an authority mindset. Authority is to have official permission. You don't deserve anything, but you do have authority. You have official permission to walk in sonship. You have official permission to receive your full inheritance. You have full authority to start living from love. You have authority to live a life of freedom. Take a deep breath. Breathe in grace. Breathe out gratitude. Let every breath remind you that you're a son seated on a throne with Jesus, and you are perfectly loved. I'll see you next week.